The answer to 1984 is 1776.
I want to set the stage here by playing a video clip, and then we're going to Kurt Haskell, one of the survivors of the Christmas Day attempted bombing of that aircraft, not this last Christmas, but the Christmas before last, 14 months ago. But all of this comes on the heels of WikiLeaks putting out government documents and saying, oh my gosh, the FBI is now searching for hijacked supporters who were casing things. But in the document, the media is focusing on the scary, Al-Qaeda people who haven't been caught and how the FBI has been dispatched to the Middle East to try to find them. But in the document, it admits that they were known by intelligence and that the FBI was told to stand down. And that's Paul Joseph Watson's article dealing with this at prisonplanet.com. WikiLeaks bombshell points to 9/11 stand down. Now, what do we have going on with Anwar al-Awlaki, the #3 guy in al-Qaeda? 2 months after 9/11, secretly meeting. In fact, let's put up that Fox News article. Secretly meeting at the Pentagon while he's on the news as one of the top al-Qaeda people. Now they admit he was behind the Fort Hood shooter. He was behind the Christmas Day bomber. He was supposedly behind the underwear bomber, the Christmas Day bomber. He was supposedly behind the shoe bomber, the Times Square bomber. But he's protected. And then I interviewed Springman of the Saudi Arabian embassy for the U.S. when they were ordered back before 9/11 to let Mohammed Atta and others back in. And when others in the visa office complained, they were told, don't worry, they're not really terrorists. This is part of drills. They're government agents. And you got the Newsweek headline, hijackers trained at U.S. military bases. And Lieutenant Colonel Stephen Butler, the head of the Defense Language School, saying they were trained at his school. The list goes on and on and on. But with Mutalab, the underwear bomber, he looks disheveled, kind of looks drugged. He gets led onto the plane. They get him on the plane without all the proper documents. Kurt Haskell and his wife, who are both lawyers, watch this. Then they see all the chicanery on the plane. He comes out and talks about it. The FBI says that can't be true. And then months later, after Christmas, in February, the State Department deputy head, Kennedy, says, yes, an unnamed U.S. agency asked us to let him get on the plane and not stop him and to basically give him the visa. Now, Kurt Haskell has now said more, but there's the Fox News headline, exclusive. Al-Qaeda leader died at the Pentagon just months after 9/11. I want to play this short Fox News clip from a few weeks ago outside dealing with the underwear bomber and his trial. And Mr. Haskell, he and his wife survived it, and everything they've said has now been totally proven. Here it is.
Today's scare comes as the man known as the underwear bomber appears in federal court in Detroit. Umar Farouk Abdul Mutalab is accused of trying to blow up a plane over Detroit on Christmas Day 2009. Fox News' Amy Lang has more from outside federal court, where a trial date has now been set. Amy.
Yes, a trial date has been set, but it was actually more interesting to hear from a couple of the passengers who showed up here at court today, who have a very interesting theory about what really happened.
The U.S. government escorted him through security without a passport, and we believe gave him an intentionally defective bomb.
It's a startling allegation from two local attorneys who were on board the 2009 Christmas Day flight to Detroit when Umar Farouk Abdul Mutalab tried to blow up a bomb hidden in his underwear. Kurt and Lori Haskell think the U.S. government was behind the whole thing.
It was intentional, and it went this far to further the war on terror, to get body scanners in the airports, to increase the TSA's budget, to renew the Patriot Act, and whatever other reasons you want to list.
The Haskells say in Amsterdam, before boarding the flight to Detroit, they witnessed Abdul Mutalab arguing with a ticket agent at the gate because he didn't have a passport, when a man in a tan suit with an American accent intervened.
The ticket agent did not want to allow Mutalab on the flight, and this man was very insistent of it. And then she referred them to a manager down the hallway.
They next saw Abdul Mutalab on board the plane when they saw fire and people screaming. Abdul Mutalab has insisted on representing himself in this case. The trial date's now been set for October 4th and could include up to 400 witnesses.
It's a very, like I said, very serious case with a lot of potential, a lot of evidence that has to be reviewed, and a lot of witnesses which must be interviewed in order to properly prepare the case.
That's Abdul Mutalab's standby attorney, Anthony Chambers. Although the judge has urged Abdul Mutalab to have Chambers represent him, so far, he's refused.
I think that this is a case that we can help him with greatly. It's a very defensible case.
And And you just heard the standby attorney saying he thinks it's a very defensible case, of course, with Abdul Mutalab representing himself. It would be interesting to see just how well he can defend himself. They do say that he's been having some trouble.
All right, you can watch the rest of it up on Infowars.com and PrisonPlanet.com. But the issue here is Kurt Haskell isn't saying this. He witnessed it. The government tried to deny it and now has admitted it. And is his standby lawyer going to bring this up? Is Mutalab, clearly out of his mind, going to bring this up? We saw the government cook the bomb, train the driver, and order a stand down in '93 with the first World Trade Center attack. It's the same story over and over and over again. A month ago in Germany, a plane came in with a supposed bomb. Turned out that was a drill, but they reported it after. Kurt Haskell joins us, who's been completely vindicated in spades, everything he talked about. Kurt, we appreciate you and your wife's courage. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me back on, Alex.
Recap, basically, for those that don't know the details of the story, exactly what happened and now what's unfolded since then.
Sure. Well, the main part of what people want to hear me talk about is what I saw before boarding, which was a man in a tan suit who appeared to be Indian escorting Mutalab to the ticket desk, indicating that Mutalab needed to get on the plane, but he didn't have a passport. The ticket agent refused, and then the man in the tan suit said, he's from Sudan. We do this all the time. They got into a bit of an argument, and then she referred the man in the tan suit and Mutalab down a hallway to talk to the security manager, and then, of course, he winds up on her plane detonating a defective bomb, but we didn't know it at the time, a few hours later. So, that's what most people want to hear from me as to my pre-boarding account. It shows that not everything was on the up and up before boarding, and now we have, since then, we have more FBI plots where they've admitted giving the Portland Christmas tree bomber and the Wrigley Field bomber, just two off the top of my head, intentionally defective bombs. And now we have standby attorney Chambers indicating that, in fact, this was a defective bomb. With all the other evidence, I could go on and on and on about all the other evidence, but I think if you just take those three pieces of evidence right there and add 2 + 2 + 2, you have the U.S. government letting Mutalab on the plane with an intentionally defective bomb.
And then we have the FBI visiting your office a month or so before the State Department admitted that what you'd said was basically true. Unnamed U.S. agency, to be technical, I guess, helped him get the visa and then helped him get on without the passport, to be technical. And you witnessed this, and then the media tried to say, and the government, oh, no, Haskell and his wife, they didn't see this. Then once it lands, they pull you off, claim they find other bombs, clearly other men that were somehow attached to the underwear bomber. All that gets covered up. You're told you didn't see that. Then other witnesses come out on CNN and confirm what you saw. But all that gets swept under the rug, and this happens. And within minutes, Chertoff, who didn't tell the public he was making money from it, is on TV saying, don't worry, we'll put scanners in now that they'd already ordered a year before, claiming they went in because of this when they'd already ordered them. And this full TSA, hands down the pants, giant international story. This is how they're selling us this. And they go out and find mentally ill, low-grade morons. You and others described him as being kind of disheveled. Some saying he almost looked drugged. I've seen videos of him. He looks like he's probably at a 75 IQ, probably retarded. And the whole thing is just a giant setup, and now he's going to represent himself. And you're a lawyer. I mean, this whole thing looks extremely shady. Is there any way for you to force your way into the trial as a witness? But I guess Mutalab would have to call you or the prosecution and say, hey, let's get into real questions. Let's talk about who was behind him. Let's talk about the government getting him on the plane.
And there's not a chance that the prosecution is going to call me as a witness. Now, I have been in discussions with standby attorney Chambers, and if he has anything to say with it, I'll be one of the main witnesses for the defense. But, as you stated, Mutalab is currently representing himself, so who knows how the trial will play out. It's a total crapshoot if someone's representing themselves at a trial.
Well, I've interviewed multiple prisoners and lawyers who sued and got the documents and got sworn affidavits from Larry Nichols that McVeigh was told, your family's going to be taken out. You are special forces. we had you do this. You'll be taken care of if you just go along with it. And I wonder if they're telling the underwear bomber the same thing now, because, you know, I mean, the fact that he doesn't even really speak good English, does he? And now magically he's going to represent himself. I mean, this is just incredible. I mean, the only way they can keep this from coming out in the trial is to keep you and others from speaking.
Yeah, you're probably right. He did have an interpreter at the hearing I was at last week. His English seemed to be fairly good, but he did talk to his interpreter on 2 or 3 occasions, so his English isn't perfect.
Is he, Kurt, is he saying anything? Thank God you've been there. Hopefully you can come back on as this unfolds. I mean, you're the expert on this. I mean, take us where we need to go. I'm just asking questions that seem rational here, but I mean, if I was the underwear bomber and I'd been led on the plane by people and protected, he should be saying, I was set up, yes, I did it, but the government helped me. I mean, is he saying anything like that?
No, not at all. As a matter of fact, most of the hearing I was at, about 25 minutes of it, and the hearing went on maybe 40 minutes, was Mutalab and Judge Edmonds basically arguing back and forth whether he was going to represent himself or not. Judge Edmonds insisting that he should have an attorney, and Mutalab saying, no, I'm representing myself. And this just went on back and forth for about 25 minutes. It was the strangest thing. It seemed like everybody watching this in the courtroom just wanted to stand up and say, let Chambers be your attorney instead of your standby. You know, everyone was on the edge of their seat waiting for Mutalab to say that, and he never did. And eventually Judge Edmonds gave up on this argument. But your point is basically a point that I was thinking of, too. There's only really 3 explanations why he's representing himself. He's being threatened with something, he's being promised something, or he has such a distrust for the United States system itself due to being duped in this plot that he does not trust an attorney being appointed from the court. So I don't know which of the 3, but I don't see that there can be any other possibilities other than one of the 3, and I don't know which it is.
Well, in the last year, as you mentioned, there have been 8 cases that we've chronicled here that I know of where they go out and find people who are described as morons, normally out of the prisons, are recruited directly by the government, contacted by the government out of whole cloth, and directed to carry out jihad with dud bombs. And clearly here we know that's what happened. The evidence, as you said, is incontrovertible. And, boy, this is really going to hurt the insider's agenda for the police state if it's able to come out what really happened.
I agree. The question is it going to come out? I really have a hard time believing that it's going to come out. Until the hearing last week, I was adamant that there would be a plea deal in this case and no trial. And now I'm convinced there will not be a plea deal and that this will go to a trial based on what I saw at the last hearing. So my question then is, how does this not come out? And probably the most logical answer is that Mutalab represents himself and does such a bad job of putting on his case that the real evidence doesn't come out. Probably the most likely scenario. I'm sure there would be some others, but you know, that's probably the most likely scenario what's going to happen.
I know that in some types of court cases you can have an amicus brief or someone from the outside who claims they have some type of standing. You're one of the survivors, the victims of this government moron plot, patsy plot. I mean, is there some legal maneuver for you to insert yourself in there?
I don't think there is, Alex. Nothing that I know of offhand. If there are any legal geniuses listening to this that thinks maybe there is, let me know. Contact me. I don't think there is. You know, I don't think Judge Edmonds would let me be anywhere near Mutalab as far as representing him. And interestingly, on that point, there was a discussion during the hearing, too, that the standby attorney Chambers is having a hard time getting a hold of Mutalab in the prison where he's at, Milan Prison, indicating on the record that his voicemails are not being given to Mutalab, his faxes are being thrown away, and he's not getting cooperation in setting up appointments with Mutalab from Milan Prison, to the extent that Judge Edmonds said she would make a call to the prison to discuss it with them. And standby attorney Chambers even saying that he believes Milan Prison got a call from someone higher up think those are his exact words, which led to this lack of cooperation. If you give me one other second, there's one other thing about the hearing I want to talk about. There was another discussion, quite lengthy, whether standby attorney Chambers would be given the evidence that Mutalab's originally hired and fired attorneys have provided by the prosecution, because he's only a standby attorney. And the government's position was that he should not be given this evidence because it could be subpoenaed or made available to third parties in a possible civil suit against the government, which I thought was kind of interesting that they're concerned about that.
Well, that's Bombshell. They're trying to cover up. They don't want anybody to ever hear or who has a brain to be able to talk to Mutalab.
Right. The point being that Chambers is not his actual attorney, so therefore there's no attorney-client privilege. So everything that Mutalab tells Chambers, other parties such as myself in a possible civil suit could obtain. I thought that was pretty interesting. There was about 10 minutes of the hearing spent on that. So that's
an admission that they're concerned about evidence that shows that the government is civilly liable.
Well, that's one way you can interpret it, definitely. They did seem to be concerned about that.
We're going to break in a moment, but continue fleshing that point out. I mean, because you're a lawyer, you understand this better than some.
Sure. Sure. Do I have time right now before the break?
Yes, you do.
Okay. With attorney-client privilege, anything your client tells you cannot be repeated to another person unless the client gives the okay. Chambers is only a standby attorney, therefore he does not have the attorney-client privilege with Mutalab at this point. So all the evidence that the prosecution had to turn over to the defense initially, when Mutalab had a legitimate attorney, the prosecution is now arguing it shouldn't be given to Chambers because that could be turned over to other parties because it's not subject to the attorney-client privilege, such as myself. If I were to sue the United States government, I could obtain every conversation and every document Mutalab would have given to Chambers. And the United States government's attorneys at the hearing last week seem to be pretty concerned about this. Do you think that clears it up, Alex? I don't know if I can be more clear than that.
No, that is stunning information. So they're clearly trying to hide something. I want to come back from break and strategize with you, Kurt, about where we go from here. Obviously, this is very dangerous for you and your wife, very dangerous for the standby attorney, because we know this guy was their patsy and this was a setup, and that's been confirmed. And you're absolutely right. Kurt Haskell blows whistle on undercover bomber. Headline, given bomb by U.S. government to boost TSA budget and implement body scanners. We'll be right back. Okay, Kurt Haskell's with us a little bit in the next hour. Survivor of the Christmas Day bombing a year and 2 months ago. And Kurt, you're a survivor. You're also a lawyer. Your wife's a lawyer and a survivor. And you're addressing several million people right now. If you were addressing the American people as a jury about what happened, how it's been used to destroy liberties in this country and where we're going, what would you say to the American people right now in encapsulating all of this and why it's so important?
Are you saying what would my closing argument be if I was the attorney? Is that your question?
Well, I mean, just everything that's happened. I mean, what do you want to impart to us?
Well, I guess what I would say is that the war on terror is a fraud. And it's being used in a manner to take away your rights for whatever reason. I don't exactly know why, but it's pretty clear that it is. And that the United States government has not been forthcoming with you in some of these plots. They are staging these plots, and just keep an open mind and actually give it some thought instead of giving deference to the United States government story. This sort of thing will only get worse unless a stop is put to it right away, and that the people become informed and actually see what the United States government is doing to them as a means to take away their rights, such as putting body scanners in the airports to take away your Fourth Amendment rights to unreasonable search and seizures. That's just one example, but you have to put a stop to it. You know, you have to think critically and look at these plots, weigh the evidence for both sides, and think to yourself what seems logical and not let it factor in that your United States government is one side of the plot. You have to just think logically and think, does their story make sense? And does the other side make sense? And with every plot, you should just think it out and see which side seems to be more credible instead of just initially dismissing the one side because they're against the U.S. government for whatever reason. But that's what I would say. Something along those lines.
Well, Kurt, I mean, you are a survivor of this, and you have standing on every level, civilly with the government, the airlines, all of it. And the key here is that everything you said turned out to be true. The government did help him get on the plane, did protect him. It fits the MO of their past dud patsy operations. And the FBI came and basically tried to get you to change your story at your office before all this came out, and now they're trying to keep this guy from the press and lawyers. I mean, you look at it on every front, they're acting very, very guilty, and we've got to get the truth out about this.
Yeah, just to clarify the point on the FBI, they didn't actually get me to try and change my story. I just want to be clear on that. It was more like they weren't interested in my story. But then a few days later, I get a call from a passenger who claims to be concerned that when the truth comes out, I will look stupid because he thinks my story's not correct. And he went on and on and on how I shouldn't be talking to the press about this because he apparently knows what I saw, even though he admitted he didn't see it himself. So it was done more undercover.
Well, Kurt, the reason I make that statement is they came and ignored you and then put out statements in the media contradicting what you were saying, and then it basically came out that you were correct.
Yes. Actually, what they did on more than one occasion, they said they reviewed 200 hours of CCTV video footage from Schiphol Airport, and it showed nothing. And then about 3 weeks later, they came out to the press and said, we're attempting to identify the person eyewitnesses said they saw helping him onto the plane. So totally contradicting their first story, showing that the first story was a lie. And the second man taken into custody, which we haven't even gone into today, the man in orange. But their story on him changed 5 times, and it's all documented in the press.
Well, we're coming back in 1 minute. Let's get into the other man on the other side. And we're so blessed to have somebody like yourself who's intelligent, informed, and who's going to the trial. Hopefully we can have you come back on as this trial unfolds. Such an important case for all of us. We'll be right back. Stay with us. Kurt Haskell. And he really is a hero for telling the truth, sticking to his guns, being proven correct, going up against the globalist. He has a show twice a week on Blog Talk Radio, the Kurt Haskell Show. Their website is Haskell Family. In fact, tell us specifically about the radio show and about the website, the proper address, Kurt.
Oh, sure. I have a Blog Talk show on blogtalkradio.com Thursday and Friday at 4 p.m. Eastern for an hour. I created it. It's a totally nonprofit show for those of you insinuating that I did it to make money. It's not true. It's nonprofit. I don't accept any advertising, and it was formed to let other people that have been disenfranchised with the media discuss topics about government corruption. So something your listeners might also be interested in. And, of course, the underwear bomber story I've been documenting on my wife's blog all along since Christmas Day 2009 at haskellfamily.blogspot.com. If you want to read my blog post going back to the start and seeing how everything has come out bit by bit and how my attitude towards this has changed, that would be a good way to do it.
Well, that was my next point. You've gotten a lot more hardcore now, coming right out and saying clearly, they gave him the dud bomb. That fits the MO, and that's what all the facts show. But briefly getting into this other gentleman on the plane.
Well, there was a man that filmed the whole incident from before it started until after it ended, and he has kind of just gone into the woodwork. No one wants to talk to him. By the way, Alex, I have his phone number, address, and email address if you want to try and talk to him. I haven't had any luck. I've contacted him a couple of times, and all I get back is a response from his attorney. But I know who he is, and if you want to contact him, let me know, and I'll provide his info to you.
Yes, when we go to break, we're stay there. I'm going to get the name and number now, and we'll start calling him. Tell us briefly, we only got about a minute or two left, what you saw.
What I saw in what regard?
I mean, with this second gentleman.
Okay, no, I didn't see the cameraman because my view of him was blocked by the bathroom. But what other passengers have said is before the attempted bombing happened, he whipped out a camcorder and started filming. He filmed all the way through it until after it ended. And mind you, this is in the middle of a terrorist attack as our plane is burning. Its bomb didn't blow up, but it started a fire. And everyone on the plane thought our plane was going down and we're going to die. So it's highly suspicious that someone would whip out a camcorder, film it all the way through, not put it down, and not only that, but he pulled it out before the incident started. So it's highly suspicious, especially if you look at it in the context of all this other evidence that we have.
Sure, this would point towards a government handler who wants to have the video to scare folks even more on the news and to also help them in the court case.
Well, it's highly suspicious. Again, I don't know what person in their right mind, when you think you're going to die, whips out a camcorder. It's just incomprehensible. Well,
some people might do that, but if he's videotaping beforehand, maybe there's a reason for it. Maybe, he's a wonderful guy, but the whole thing is very, very suspicious, Kurt, and it's clear we're going to need to talk to you again about this very, very soon as the trial of the underwear bomber unfolds. We really want to thank you for all you've done, and folks should check out the Blog Talk Radio show, and they should also check out the Haskell Family blog. And just, again, we're going to put you on hold as this segment ends and get the name and number of the supposed video person. I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, that's fine. Yeah, I think, if any of your listeners are skeptical as to my story at all, I would just encourage you to look at all the evidence. There's a damning amount of evidence that shows that my position is actually correct. So don't just look at one piece or two. There's at least 30 different bits of evidence, which I gave to Amy Lang as evidence that she requested, Amy Lang being the Fox 2 reporter of the clip that you aired earlier. So there's a great deal of evidence supporting my position on this. The government story is nonsensical, contradictory, and just a flat-out lie.
Well, Kurt, you've done an incredible job. I don't even know why you're being defensive a little bit. I mean, you're a hero. You've been totally proven right. And so what if disinfo people try to lie about you? Folks should go to the website, see the facts for themselves. You and your wife and other witnesses are spot on. And we salute you for defending the liberties of this republic. Stay with us.